We went from 12 follow-ups to closing a B2B client to virtually zero by ditching pain-based techniques in our sales process as a B2B business. And today I'm going to show you how we help our customers at CounterpartOS eliminate endless follow-ups with 3 key actions that will get you from an average of really long follow-up time of 12 when customers come to us to 3. And it was the same experience that I had in my business. I'm Tom Moore. I'm the founder and managing partner of CounterpartOS. At CounterpartOS, we exist to help B2B founders find and close their first B2B partnership that actually generates revenue, and we do it with you. To date, we've generated $62 million in partnership sales for our customers, and it all comes from my experience going from 6 to 8 figures in 24 months through 6 partnerships as an underdog startup from Australia. And today, we're going to show you the Trusted Advisor Framework, which is 3 key actions, and how we replace pain-based selling with it to stop endless follow-ups that you're probably banging your head against the wall on. And if you're new to B2B, if you're new to B2B, it is a journey that is a tricky one, but it's really easy, yet again, if you change your orientation, take the exceptional path, and do something a little different. But first, why don't we get into what most founders do? And what most founders do in order to get a sale done is to increase pain. But the exceptional ones that have done B2B before know that the best way to increase your deal size and get them to chase you is to increase trust. But let's talk about why pain works and what it looks like, because it is successful and it can provide you some value, just not as much as our Trusted Advisor Framework can. So a typical pain-based sale, what we're trying to do is create an urgency to act. We want our customer to, after we meet them, to find us, act quickly, buy quickly. And we do that by stressing a lot of pain, showing our point of difference, providing some value or finding more pain, and then proposing a way of curing that pain. Now, back in the day, this used to be called spin selling. It's still used aggressively in B2B services and SaaS and AI native. I hate it, but it does work. How this journey usually starts is a demonstration of your unfair advantage aligned to a known pain point or a future pain point that your customer has. That's generally your first meeting. It is a strong about you meeting. It's rarely ever about the customer, and I think most experienced buyers hate it. If we've delivered our unfair advantage well, we've highlighted the pain, we go into something called a disco or discovery session. The main goal of that call, generally when it's done by a B2B founder for the first time, is to discover more pain. Because if we have more pain, we can increase the urgency to act, or we can add more to the deal. The last step that people usually do after discovery is they ask for a proposal. A proposal on how, through your unfair advantage, you can overcome the pains that you just presented. This fundamentally works brilliantly when a customer knows exactly what they need. They're looking for an alternative to what they already have. But if you've ever spent any time in B2B space, a lot of them are uncertain, things change, and it's dysfunctional. So getting clarity is really hard, and it leads to multi-threading and running through this process again and again. Because fundamentally, you're driving urgency to act, which is making sure that you remind them more, sell more, or showcase more people that you've cured the pain from that you just started to create. And so you're always on a selling footing, and you're always trying to push urgency to act. It's good, but it's not great, and it creates a significant amount of follow-ups for 2 reasons. One, if you create urgency, the opposite action that you generally create, unless you manage this beautifully, is someone that doesn't want to move as urgent. People don't like to be pushed, especially if they're B2B buyers. They have competing tasks that might not be their whole jobs. And so if you start creating urgency and pushing it, they'll probably wait a little bit and you'll have to remind more. The other thing that it does is that it doesn't create a space for a relationship to develop. If you're focusing hard on a pain point, you don't really allow much for any other discussion or much of a deeper dive. You're probably trying to operate a land and expand strategy and just sort it out once you get in there. But because you wait for the transaction to happen before you build trust, you're stuck in sales mode and they're stuck in buying mode. That's all good, and it will probably get you to 6 figures. But getting to 7 and 8 figures as a B2B business, services, SaaS, or AI native, you're going to find it really hard if you just keep doubling down on pain when you're selling to a larger organization or a dysfunctional one or even a growing one. So what we uncovered in my business, if we got sick of smacking our heads against 12 follow-ups every time we try to get a deal done, when we were pushing, hey, we can match veterans with this cool unfair advantage. We can, all these other jobs that you've also got, we can match them too. And we can do it in this ridiculous time. You should just buy it. After sitting there going, hey, 12 follow-ups, the amount of hours we've spent on this, we could probably actually help get all of their jobs in our system and hire and get this rate of hiring from 10 to 400. We started to realize we were missing things. And then we realized that someone else's pain is probably an early warning signature or an indicator that they're probably trying to transform to something bigger. So as you start to multi-thread, you start to realize that other people are experiencing the pain, and it's probably leading to a discussion on a transformation that you're not in. So you can keep selling and landing and expanding if you want, but we stopped doing that because we realized there is a way of getting the whole transformational sale on first purchase versus focusing on people's pain, bringing them together, and reminding them to start working with us. So how did we do that? We did it through what we became known as our Trusted Advisor Framework. And the goal of the Trusted Advisor Framework was not to increase pain, was to use the sales process to increase trust. Because if we increase trust, rather than driving our customers to be urgent to act on our solution, we wanted to be considered and go through a process of committing to a potential partnership. Because as partners, we can transform, and as a vendor, we can resolve or cure the pain. And so rather than demo, discovery, proposal, we ran a different 3-step cycle that was vision, insight, business case. So we ran a vision meeting, an insight meeting, and a business case. The result of doing this was not selling to our customers, but co-selling with our counterpart to their economic sponsor the first time through, getting a much larger deal size, and pretty much removing all follow-ups and getting them to chase us. Awesome. So what did each one look like? At my veteran business, rather than having a sort of complete focus with a 30, 45-minute demo of all of our unfair advantages, we said, hey, here's the market vision, solve underemployment. Is that something you want to do? What was really interesting is we had a discussion versus a demonstration. Most people wanted a shared vision. Once we had that commitment of a shared vision, we had shared belief. There is now an opportunity to go into deeper discussion and discernment on whether we should partner on the bold transformation, in our case, potential over experience, and the transformation being moving from a experience-based hiring platform to a skills-based hiring platform, which was an ongoing discussion in all of our customers at the executive level. The great thing about having a shared belief is that the counterpart or prospect felt more encouraged to bring more people to what we call an insight meeting. And in an insight meeting, rather than just saying, hey, what are the other pain points or jobs you're not solving, we built them a skills framework, a huge insight based off all their open jobs that they could use the next day. Putting really simply, so they didn't need to actually work with us to adopt the skills-based hiring framework. This created a substantial amount of value. By providing such a piece of value that was showcasing the opportunity versus discovering more pain, we got shared learning. And shared learning builds trust. The other thing we did is rather than worrying about, hey, who else has this pain, we also asked everyone in this call whether they wanted to solve this wider transformation and they had the same belief and if they were ready for it. That readiness survey fundamentally changed us from a footing of being considered as a nice person providing heaps of value to us applying discernment on our potential customer on whether we should work with them. That fundamental scarcity, as well as discernment and letting go of the deal on our side, created an opportunity to create new trust. We provided new space. It made our prospect realize that they were probably ready to change because they also want to do it with us. And that desire and want to work with us always came out in that survey. So after we've got shared vision and shared learning, the trust level is so high that most people don't ask you for a proposal. What they say is, how should we get started? What does this look like together? And what could this look like if we started to really tackle the bigger transformation from day one versus just chipping away at it? And so our third meeting after an insight meeting and the vision meeting was what we call a business case meeting. And the great thing about it being a business case meeting is we've now gone from shared learning, our shared vision and belief, to shared learning, to now shared work. By developing a business case together, we must have the same goal, but with different incentives and different risks. But not doing this in isolation, we are now working together before we transact. And if we're working together before we transact, we lower the risk of the transformation not happening by executives being able to see it before it happens. We increase the deal size because as we look at incentives and risks, it make more sense too. And last but not least, we consider the whole transformation versus just the pain point, increasing the deal size again. But fundamentally, by having it focused on building a joint business case, we now need to present that to an economic sponsor. So we move from chasing, reminding, and selling to co-selling with our counterpart on a shared vision based off the right time to act with shared learning with a case for shared work. Game fucking change. There is no chasing if you're already in shared work with someone. It's fundamentally game changed if you already know the incentives and risks. And so we found this process, which is building trust, always beat the door of creating pain and having quick sales, because fundamentally, by the time we're at the business case, the organization had made the commitment to partner and we were just considering what the partnership looked like. And because we were focusing on targeting a transformation versus just a transaction and then expanding, it was a two-sided conversation and it was very much a we versus a one-sided conversation, stressing them to act on pain points and just making us remind them as the only tool or tactic we could use to get the deal done. This is an exceptional shift. It's an exceptional shift because as a founder or a salesperson in a new B2B business, you have to be okay with the uncomfortable. And the uncomfortable is focusing on building trust versus just chasing the quick sale. The uncomfortable is being able to walk away from the client and showing them how to do it themselves with shared learning. And finally, not least, actually being able to air your dirty laundry as highlighting some of your risks in the business case to a potential buyer. And the reason most people don't do any of those things is that it's all uncomfortable, not because their business doesn't have proof. So if you're sick of chasing prospect 12 times on average for our customers, but probably a lot, and you're sick of pushing pain for your life's work, I would strongly encourage you to try our Trusted Advisor framework that turns that huge follow-up drag into 3 key actions that help a partner commit to doing the transformation with you versus just acting on the urgency and the whiningness and the follow-up that you're probably doing, that you probably don't like anyway, that you know feels wrong. And if you want this stuff, you can sign up to our community. You get all access to the Trusted Advisor framework, or you can work with us by just signing up below and implementing this into your business so that you can get the types of outcomes our customers are seeing by building trust versus stressing pain.